When you walk away from a woman, something powerful happens psychologically. It's not what most men think. You might expect anger, desperation, or immediate regret. But the reality is far more complex. The psychological process that unfolds when emotional distance enters a relationship goes through distinct stages, each one revealing something different about how she processes absence, uncertainty, and what you meant to her. The uncomfortable truth is this: walking away doesn't create one reaction. It creates a full emotional journey that evolves from shock to curiosity to re-evaluation to internal conflict to reflection and finally to a decision about reconnection or detachment. This is Liza from Secrets Inside the Mind.
And today, I am breaking down the 7 psychological things a woman feels when you walk away. Not surface reactions, but the deep emotional and cognitive processes happening beneath the surface. Because understanding this psychology is the difference between men who regain control and men who lose it forever. Engagement. CTA number 1, around 1 minute. If you've ever walked away from a woman and wondered what was actually happening in her mind, subscribe right now, because this video reveals the psychological stages she goes through, stages that most men completely misunderstand. Keep watching until the end, because the final feeling is the one that determines whether she comes back or moves on for good. Section 1, the psychology of walking away, why this moment matters. Before we get into the 7 feelings, you need to understand the basic psychology of what happens when you introduce emotional distance. From a psychological perspective, when you walk away, you're disrupting her attachment system. Human brains are deeply wired for consistency and connection. When someone who was previously present becomes less available, her mind immediately begins a process of adjustment and interpretation. Here's what most men don't understand. Walking away isn't a simple action with a simple response. It triggers a complex psychological process that unfolds in stages. She doesn't just feel one thing. She feels multiple things sequentially, each feeling building on the previous one, each stage adding new layers to her interpretation of what your absence means. Psychologically, absence often changes perception faster than presence. When you're no longer consistently available, her mind begins to interpret that shift. It looks for meaning. It evaluates emotional impact. It re-examines the value of the connection. This is not a conscious decision. It's an automatic psychological response to disruption in her attachment system. The key insight is this: what happens when you walk away reveals more about the connection than when everything feels stable. Absence forces clarity. It forces her mind to stop operating on autopilot and actually process what you meant to her. Section 2. Feeling number 1, the shock of disruption, initial disorientation. The first thing a woman feels when you walk away is shock. Not dramatic shock, but psychological shock, the disruption of routine and expectation. Her brain has been conditioned to your presence, your communication pattern, your attention, your consistency. These have formed neural pathways of expectation. When you suddenly change that pattern, her mind registers a break in what was supposed to be continuous. Psychologically, this stage is more cognitive than emotional at first. Her brain notices that expected communication is no longer happening. Expected availability has disappeared. The usual flow of interaction has changed. This creates an immediate awareness that something familiar has shifted. Here's what's important. This shock is not about missing you yet. It's about the brain's disorientation when consistency is removed. She's not thinking, I miss him. She's thinking, something is different. Her mind is simply adjusting to the change in pattern. Many women don't consciously recognize this stage because it happens so quickly. But internally, her attachment system is registering the break in routine. This creates a foundation for everything that follows. The shock becomes the starting point for deeper emotional processing. From a psychology standpoint, the intensity of this shock depends on how consistent your presence was before. The more stable the connection, the more noticeable the disruption feels. If you were constantly communicating, constantly available, constantly present, her brain will register your absence more intensely. This initial feeling often lasts only hours or a few days, but it's crucial because it sets the stage for the next stage: curiosity and mental searching. Section 3. Feeling number 2, heightened curiosity and mental replay, the search for understanding. After the initial shock settles, the second feeling that emerges is curiosity. Her mind begins to search for meaning. Why did you walk away? When did this start? What changed? Psychologically, uncertainty naturally leads to mental searching. Her brain attempts to fill gaps in understanding by replaying past interactions, analyzing recent conversations, and looking for the moment when things shifted. This is not a conscious decision. It's an automatic cognitive process. In relationship psychology, this stage is characterized by constant mental replay. She's thinking about moments you shared, analyzing conversations for hidden meaning, looking for signs she might have missed. Her mind is essentially running detective work, trying to understand what caused you to create distance. Here's what's critical to understand. This curiosity is intense because her brain is trying to restore clarity. Inconsistency creates discomfort. Her mind is driven to reduce that discomfort by finding explanations. So she replays, analyzes, remembers, searches. The level of curiosity depends heavily on the strength of your previous connection. If your relationship had emotional depth, if you were significant to her, this mental replay process will be stronger and more detailed. She'll remember small moments you probably forgot. She'll analyze your tone in old messages. She'll look for clues in past behavior. During this stage, even small details become important. The timing of your last message, the tone of your final conversation, the shift in your energy before you walked away, all of these details are being re-examined through a new lens, the lens of absence. Psychologically, this stage often lasts longer than the initial shock. It can extend for days or weeks as her mind continuously searches for understanding. The curiosity is also what might lead to her reaching out, not from emotional desperation, but from genuine need for clarity about what happened. Section 4, Feeling, Sector 3, Emotional Reevaluation, Redefining What You Meant. After curiosity and mental replay begin to settle, the third feeling emerges: emotional reevaluation. Her mind shifts from asking why to asking, what did this mean? In relationship psychology, reevaluation is deeper than simple thinking because it involves assigning emotional meaning to the change in distance. She begins comparing how things felt before with how they feel now. And this comparison shapes how she emotionally interprets your absence. At this point, your absence is no longer just a change in routine or a curiosity trigger. It becomes something being analyzed in terms of emotional significance. She's asking herself, what did this relationship actually mean to me? What am I feeling right now? What has really shifted? This stage is heavily influenced by emotional memory. Depending on her emotional state, her mind might highlight positive experiences you shared, making her miss you more intensely. Or it might highlight negative experiences, making your absence feel more justified. Her current emotional state colors how she remembers your past. Here's what's important. This reevaluation doesn't lead to one fixed conclusion. It's a fluid process. She might feel increased appreciation for what you were, or confusion about what the relationship was, or detachment, or renewed desire for reconnection. The outcome depends on her attachment style, her emotional history, and the specific nature of your connection. Psychologically, this stage marks a shift from passive awareness to active interpretation of emotional value. The relationship is no longer experienced only in real time or memory. It's being viewed through a reflective, evaluative lens. She's trying to make sense of what this connection meant, both to her life and to her emotional system. This is also the stage where she begins to develop a new narrative about your relationship. Before you walked away, the narrative was active and ongoing. Now she's writing a story about what it was, what it meant, and what your departure says about both of you. Section 5, Feeling Number 4, Heightened Emotional Sensitivity, Every Detail Amplified. As emotional reevaluation continues, another psychological shift occurs. Heightened emotional sensitivity. This is a critical stage that many men misunderstand. When emotional certainty decreases, emotional sensitivity increases. Her mind begins paying closer attention to signals in order to regain stability. A delayed response from you, if you do communicate, feels more significant. A shorter message feels more distant. A change in tone feels more meaningful. In relationship psychology, sensitivity increases because her attachment system is activated under uncertainty. The brain is trying to restore emotional balance by becoming more alert to any indication of reconnection or further withdrawal. She's monitoring for signals because signals might help her understand what's happening and whether reconciliation is possible. Here's what's crucial to understand. This heightened sensitivity is not her being needy or dramatic. It's a natural adaptive response to uncertainty. When someone loses consistent emotional input, their brain automatically becomes more attuned to available signals. This is how the human attachment system works. At this stage, small details in behavior can feel magnified. If you send a casual message, she might analyze it for hidden meaning. If you don't respond for hours, she might interpret it as distance rather than simple busyness. If you like one of her social media posts, she might see it as a sign of reconnection rather than coincidence. Psychologically, this sensitivity is tied to her emotional memory and history with you. Past experiences in your relationship shape how current behavior is interpreted, so her reactions are influenced by both current distance and previous emotional context. Everything is being filtered through what she knows about you and what she's experienced with you. This is the stage where she's most emotionally reactive. She's caught between wanting clarity and not having enough stable feedback to form it. This creates emotional restlessness where thoughts about you become more frequent and harder to settle. Section 6, feeling the number 5, attempted reconnection. The test of possibility. After heightened sensitivity reaches a peak, something often shifts. The 5th feeling that emerges is an impulse toward attempted reconnection. Her mind and emotions begin looking for ways to restore connection or test whether it's still possible. This stage is often misunderstood by men. When she reaches out, or when she responds positively if you reach out, it's not necessarily about her deciding she wants you back. It's about her testing. She's exploring whether reconnection is still possible. She's looking for signs that the connection still exists. In relationship psychology, this behavior is part of attachment regulation. When emotional distance persists, people naturally seek ways to test whether reconnection is available. She might reach out casually, check your social media, initiate small conversations that reestablish contact without directly addressing the emotional shift. The goal of this behavior is often unconscious, but it's driven by the need to reduce uncertainty and regain emotional balance. She's in a state of internal conflict where part of her wants to move on and part of her wants to reconnect. This attempted reconnection is an exploration of that possibility. Here's what's important. This doesn't mean she's decided to take you back. It means she's testing the waters, she's checking whether the emotional door is still open, she's seeing if engagement with you still feels positive or if it feels distant. Psychologically, the responses she receives during this phase heavily influence her next direction. If you respond warmly and consistently, it may encourage further reconnection efforts. If your responses feel distant or inconsistent, it may reinforce her withdrawal. The feedback loop between her attempts and your responses becomes crucial. This stage is also shaped by her attachment style. Some women will be direct in their attempts at reconnection. Others will remain indirect or cautious, testing through small gestures rather than direct communication. But regardless of style, the underlying driver is the same: the need to resolve the uncertainty created by your absence. Section 7, feeling 6, emotional frustration and internal conflict. The tension point. After attempts at reconnection, if responses remain unclear, inconsistent, or emotionally distant, a deeper emotional layer emerges: frustration and internal conflict. This is where the psychology becomes more painful. She's no longer just observing or testing. She's actively struggling to make sense of the situation. Emotional signals that were once interpreted more simply now feel confusing or contradictory. In relationship psychology, frustration develops when expectations of emotional clarity are not met. She's looking for signs, but the signs are ambiguous. She's attempting reconnection, but your responses are unclear. This creates a state of emotional restlessness where her mind spins in circles trying to find stable ground. Internal conflict also develops because part of her still wants reconnection, while another part begins preparing for detachment as a protective response. This creates emotional push and pull that's genuinely difficult to manage. She's torn between hope and self-protection. Psychologically, this stage is characterized by heightened emotional reactivity. Even neutral interactions might be interpreted through a more emotional lens because her system is already activated. A normal message might be read as rejection. A casual interaction might feel like confirmation that you're moving on. Many women experience this stage as emotional turbulence where thoughts about you become more frequent and harder to control. The absence becomes more emotionally charged because it's now connected to unresolved expectations and confusion. She's not just missing you, she's frustrated that she can't understand what's happening or what you want. This is also the stage where self-protection instincts begin to activate more strongly. If clarity doesn't come, if signals remain mixed, she begins to emotionally prepare for the possibility that reconnection isn't happening. This preparation is psychological self-defense. Section 8. Feeling. Bakrsha 7. Emotional resolution and acceptance. The final shift. After frustration and internal conflict reach their peak, the seventh and final feeling eventually emerges: emotional resolution and acceptance. Her mind stops actively searching for meaning and begins to accept a more stable interpretation of reality. This stage doesn't happen suddenly. It unfolds gradually as emotional intensity decreases and clarity increases. Her mind gradually stops analyzing every detail and begins to settle into a new understanding of the situation and of what you meant to her. In relationship psychology, resolution is when the attachment system, which has been in overdrive processing uncertainty, finally begins to reduce its intensity. The emotional turbulence calms. Thoughts about you become less frequent and less emotionally charged. The constant analysis begins to settle. Okay, here's what's crucial to understand. This resolution can go in two directions. Either she emotionally stabilizes around reconnection, where your absence becomes the past, and the relationship enters a new phase. Or she emotionally stabilizes around detachment, where she accepts that the connection is ending and begins the process of moving forward. Psychologically, both outcomes represent the same goal: restoration of emotional stability. Whether she reconnects with you or detaches from you, her primary psychological need is to reduce uncertainty and return to emotional equilibrium. If reconnection occurs, resolution might look like a calmer, more grounded form of engagement compared to before. She's processed what happened. She understands what you mean to her. The connection is no longer experienced through constant anxiety or uncertainty. If detachment occurs, resolution might look like emotional acceptance, where she's made peace with the ending. Thoughts about you become less intrusive. She reorganizes her emotional life around other people and other pursuits. The relationship becomes part of her past rather than her present. Importantly, resolution doesn't mean the feelings disappear. It means they stabilize. Emotional memories remain, but they become less raw and disruptive. She integrates the experience into her broader life rather than letting it consume her present. Section 9, the complete psychological cycle, understanding the whole process. When you walk away, a woman doesn't experience one feeling. She experiences a full psychological process. Let me tie this together for you. Stage 1, shock of disruption. Her brain registers that familiar patterns have changed. This is quick but foundational. Stage 2, heightened curiosity. Her mind searches for meaning by replaying moments, analyzing behavior, looking for the turning point where you started pulling away. Stage 3, emotional re-evaluation. She assigns emotional significance to your absence. She compares how things felt before with how they feel now. She redefines what you meant to her. Stage 4, heightened sensitivity. Every detail becomes amplified. She's monitoring for signals because signals might help her understand and predict what comes next. Stage 5, attempted reconnection. She tests whether the emotional door is still open. She explores whether reconnection is possible through careful, often indirect, attempts to restore contact. Stage 6, frustration and internal conflict. If clarity doesn't come, if responses remain mixed, she enters emotional turbulence where hope and self-protection battle within her. Stage 7, emotional resolution. Eventually, her mind settles into a new stable state, either toward reconnection or toward detachment. Her psychological need for stability overrides everything else. Here's the critical insight. This entire psychological process is automatic. She's not consciously deciding to go through these stages. Her attachment system is simply responding to the disruption you've created by walking away. Engagement CTA NER2, around 20 minutes. If you're recognizing these stages in a situation you're experiencing right now, comment below. Tell me which stage you think she's in. And like this video if it's helping you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now, because understanding female psychology is the difference between men who regain control and men who lose everything. Check Centerstapers, section 10. What this means for you, the practical reality. Now that you understand the 7 feelings she experiences when you walk away, let me be direct about what this means practically. First, understand that walking away is powerful, but only if you actually walk away. If you walk away and then stay in her life through social media, through occasional texts, through mixed signals, you're disrupting her psychological process. You're keeping her in stage 4 or 5 instead of allowing her to move toward resolution. From a psychology standpoint, clarity requires clean distance. If you're going to walk away completely. This allows her psychological system to process your absence without constant reactivation of hope. Second, understand that the feelings she experiences are not about desperation or neediness. They're about her brain's natural response to disruption and uncertainty. Even the most independent woman will go through these stages when emotional distance is introduced. It's psychology, not weakness. Third, understand that her ultimate emotional resolution, whether toward reconnection or detachment, will be determined largely by how consistent you are with your distance. If you create distance and maintain it, she'll move toward resolution around that reality. If you create distance and then show up inconsistently, you'll keep her in the frustration and internal conflict stage indefinitely. The psychological reality is this. When you walk away with conviction and consistency, you eventually create the conditions for either genuine reconnection or genuine closure. Both of these are better than the emotional limbo that inconsistency creates. Finally, understand that the feelings she experiences reveal the depth of what you meant to her. A woman doesn't go through all 7 stages for someone who doesn't matter. The intensity and length of these stages are proportional to the emotional investment she had in the connection. Section 11, the final truth, reclaiming your power. Here's the harsh psychological truth. Most men walk away without understanding the power of that action. They think walking away is weakness. They think reaching back out during her emotional processing is strength. It's actually the opposite. Walking away with conviction is psychologically powerful because it creates the conditions for her to process your absence honestly. Reaching back out is psychologically weak because it keeps her in limbo, unable to truly process or resolve. From a psychology standpoint, a man who walks away and stays away commands more respect and attention than a man who walks away and then inconsistently reaches back in. The first man is operating from clarity and conviction. The second is operating from confusion and uncertainty. When you walk away, you're essentially saying, I have standards.
I have boundaries. I'm willing to lose this connection rather than compromise who I am. Psychologically, that's powerful. That's attractive. That's the kind of conviction that makes women reassess their own behavior. The 7 feelings she experiences when you walk away are her brain's way of processing that message. She's not just experiencing distance. She's experiencing a man who knew his worth enough to walk away. That's psychologically transformative. If you're ready to understand women at a deeper psychological level, If you're ready to stop being confused by female behavior and start understanding the actual processes happening beneath the surface, subscribe to Secrets Inside the Mind. Comment below and tell me, what's stopping you from walking away if the relationship isn't serving you? What would change if you actually believed in your own worth enough to create distance when necessary?
Like this video if it shifted how you understand female psychology. And remember, the power to transform a situation often comes from your willingness to walk away from it. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.